Welcome to another edition of Inside the Governor's Groove. I am Communications Officer Colleen Penn, and I'll be your host for today's program. The Office of the Supervisor of Elections is in the process of producing an annual voters list. This is done every year outside an election year. To speak to us more about this process, I have as my guest the Supervisor of Elections, Ms. Juliet Penn. Ms. Juliet Penn, welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Now let's go straight into it. The continuous voter registration process. Do tell our viewers a bit about this process.
Continuous voter registration is done throughout the year. It is a process in which all eligible persons are welcome to register throughout the year. Once you have attained the age of 18 years, you have gotten belanger status, or you have returned back to the territory to live, you are welcome to come to the office and register. And that is what we use as a continuous voter registration.
Now, what is the process that your office goes through for producing this list?
Well, every year, in order to have an updated list, I would say to clean up the list. That means that we would take off all persons that are deceased from the year before up until the present time, which is usually in September. All those names will be taken off the list. All new persons who are registered would be added to the list. All persons who have transferred from one district to the other, their names will be reflected as having gone to another district. That is the process that we use to have the list updated on a regular every year.
And it's important that this is done and persons come in to get their information updated and not wait until an election year to then come to the office.
Yes, because the list that is done yearly actually is supposed to be the official list for that year. And say, for instance, we're going to update the list now. And if we have an election, say in the next week, that list is supposed to be the list that would be used. So that's why we update the list every year. So we don't have to wait until an election year where you have to take off everybody from 4 years back, because that's the only way we could do that if we don't do it every year.
And just to be clear, there's no election next week,
No, there's no election next week, so don't get confused. There is no election next week. As far as I know, there's no election next week.
Well, we just as related, so it must be cleaned up every year, and it's good to have the records updated.
Yes, yes. It's a means of cleaning the list and making sure that all new persons are on the list. Because in years gone back, when we did the list every 4 years, if you came to the office between those 4 years and asked for a list, quite naturally you'll get a list with persons who were dead on it, persons who had registered previously, but their name would not be reflected on that list. So that's one means of why we do the updating every year. So persons is continually being updated. Mm-hmm.
Great. So you spoke about 3 categories: persons who are now 18, persons who have gotten belanger status, and persons who should transfer. That's different. What documentation? Let's talk about the first one. Persons who have now turned 18 and they belong to the territory of the Virgin Islands. What should they bring to register?
Ideally, we would like them to bring us some sort of photo ID, But if they don't have a passport or anything like that and they were born here, they can walk with their birth certificate. So we accept birth certificates, passports, belongers cards. A naturalization certificate, if it was issued before 2007, on the 15th of June.
Good. And for persons who have, well, you said belanger cards, so those persons would fall in that category if they recently required there.
Yes.
The transfer process, if persons wish to transfer from what makes someone eligible to transfer?
By law, you're not required to transfer if you don't want to. If you're registered in Easton and you've moved to Weston and you don't feel so inclined, you don't have to transfer. But if you wish to transfer, you have to bring us documentary evidence to show that you're actually living in Weston. You would need something like your electricity bill, your cable bill, your water bill. If you don't have any of those in your name and you're renting from someone, we would like to see a rent receipt from that person stating the location of where you live in, or if you don't have that, then you have to do a notarized statement saying that you live in that area.
Brilliant. And like you said, it's all part of making sure the list is clean,
Yes.
everything is in order,
Yes.
it's accurate, because we need to have our documentation up to date and accurate moving forward. Why should persons who are eligible to vote register to vote?
They should register to vote in order to have a say within their country, because if you're not registered to vote, then you're not eligible to vote. You have to be registered in order to vote.
Persons say they don't see the real reason why. Sometimes that's relates to why they should vote. We're not here to debate that.
No,
We're
no.
not here to debate that.
No,
but
that's-
they have a right as a...
They have a right. That is their right. It is their right. It's the only right you have to have a say within what happens. If you don't register and you don't vote, then you don't have a say as to what happens, who is elected. And I mean, you shouldn't be able to meet them and accost them because you didn't register and you didn't vote.
You need to be part of the democratic
That's
process.
part of the democratic right.
Great. So earlier you spoke about usually in September the list is cleaned. So the list, you're open anytime you can register up to September. Once the cutoff date in September arrives for where you can register, what happens then?
Okay. After that period of time, we have what we call the preliminary list, which is the list of the new persons that have come on and all the other persons that are on the list. So that list is published to the public and for 10 days. That list would go out now to the public for 10 days. That 10 days would begin on the 27th of September, right? And during that period, persons, I would love to know that people are inspecting that list to make sure that the name is spelled correctly, that their occupation is correct, that their place of residence is correct. If it's not, then during that 10 days period, persons are urged to make a claim as to what with their registration. For instance, persons who are still listed as students, now is their time to have that rectified. You can come in, there's a form which has to be filled, and you state your proper occupation. So we can update the list and not have you as a student anymore. And persons whose name is spelled incorrectly, if they are saying that the name is spelled incorrectly, now is the time for them to make that claim. Persons who have married, through marriage has changed the name or has gone back to the former names, now is the time to have those sort of things done. So we would urge people to inspect the list. It would be out.
Where will they find them?
You can find the list at all post offices. You can find them at the elections office, all post offices within the territory. You can find them in Virgin Gorda, Anegada, Josephine Dyke, and other places where we put them, where we think people would have a good look at them. We find them at the college, at different shops in different areas. So you can have an opportunity to look at the list, check the list properly, and if there are any claims that you want to claim, anything that you want to have done, you can write your claim. But remember, we do not need a claim without documentary evidence, especially if you change the names and stuff like that. Occupation is different because people change their occupation all the time. So we would need, we would encourage people to look at the lists, and if you have any claims, to do so. And if you want to object to anybody's name being on the list, you can also do that.
How is that done?
There's a form. If you, for instance, if you decide that...
But before that, why would someone object to a name on the list?
You may say, well, that person is not a belonger, or that person is not eligible to be on that list, but you have to prove to us. You have to bring your evidence to show us. Or if you have evidence, we would have to have convene a hearing to take evidence and stuff like that to prove that somebody is not eligible to be on the list.
Understood. Mm-hmm. And the process, they will have to come to your office.
Those claims and objections are filed at the Office of the Supervisor of Elections.
All right. So the preliminary list will be issued on September
the 27th.
For a period of 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
And you want persons to inspect that list,
yes,
to make sure the content is correct.
Correct.
And wherever the list is available, go get a copy and inspect the list. After the 10 days, what happens then?
After the 10 days, we the office, we go through the claims if there are any. We go through the objections if there are any. Some of them may be just a typographical error that needs to be corrected. So we will need to do a hearing for those. So those are in-house corrections that can be made. And whatever they are, we make the necessary corrections, and then we prepare the final list, which would be the official list, which would be sent out on the 14th of October. So that would be the final list for 2016. That would be the official voters list until we do the revision again next year.
So if persons miss this opportunity to register after the final list is issued on the October date, how soon after can persons then come again to, if they've just turned 18, if they're now got status, when can they come in after that? Or like you said, it's continuous.
It is continuous. So they can come in on any day, anytime, but they will not be included now on this 2016 list. That is the difference. The 2016 list is now closed. So, but it doesn't mean that registration is closed for 2016. It just means that you will not be able to be on the 2016 list. But continuous registration continues. It does not stop at all. It just means you won't be on this list for this year. You would be on the next list.
And you said, and every year your office...
Every year we do that. Every year we
you
do
produce
that.
an official list. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. As we conclude today's interview, any final words you would like to leave with persons who are eligible to vote, persons who need to get their status changed, and just to vote in public? Any final words you'd like to leave with them?
I would just want to encourage persons, especially young persons who have attained the age of 18 or who would be making 18 anytime soon. As soon as you make your 18th birthday, once you're Virgin Islander, you're British, and you're a belonger, we invite you to come into the elections office and be registered to vote. If you want to transfer, and when you come to vote, when you come to register, I want you to list exactly where you live, not where you wish to vote. You are supposed to list where you live because you are registered according to your address. We're not able to check, or we don't know everybody, so we're not able to check where everybody lives. We take you at your word that you live in East End and not West End. So I would encourage persons who have attained belonger status, who have become 18 years to just come in and register to vote. Do not wait until we have an election year to do so.
Ms. Juliet Penn, thank you for joining me today and for sharing with us about the official voters list and for encouraging persons to register to vote.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're listening to another edition of Inside the Governor's Group. My guest today was Ms. Juliet Penn, Supervisor of Elections, and she discussed the producing of the official voters list and encouraged eligible persons to register to vote. For more information, please visit the Office of the Supervisor of Elections. That's all for now. Until next time, I'll continue to be your host, Communications Officer Colleen Penn. That's all for now. Visit the Government of the Virgin Islands YouTube, Facebook, and website to learn more about us inside the Governor's Group.